Welcome to the virtual public hearing for the TxDOT Austin District's Capital Express North project. TxDOT is proposing improvements to I-35 from SH-45 North in Williamson County to US 290 East in Travis County. Due to the COVID-19 outbreak, along with our commitment to protecting public health, TxDOT is conducting this virtual public hearing to minimize in-person contact. This presentation will cover the same information that the Austin District would have shared at an in-person hearing. However, the comment process will be different, and that will be explained shortly. All project information and supplemental materials can be found on the virtual public hearing website. My name is Brad Wheelis, Public Information Officer for the Austin District, and I would like to welcome and thank you for watching this virtual public hearing that will be available through June 10, 2021. We'll be covering the following areas: a project overview, an environmental overview, proposed right-of-way and displacements, the proposed timeline and project development, the public comment process. Again, this will be a little different than our in-person public hearings, and I'll explain later. And then adjournment. Additionally, since this is a pre-recorded virtual presentation, you'll be able to pause, rewind, or fast-forward this video at any time. Prior to December 16, 2014, the Federal Highway Administration, otherwise known as FHWA, reviewed and approved documents prepared under the National Environmental Policy Act, known as NEPA. However, on December 16, 2014, the Texas Department of Transportation assumed responsibility from the FHWA for reviewing and approving certain assigned NEPA environmental documents. This Memorandum of Understanding was renewed on December 9, 2019. This review and approval process applies to this proposed project. This virtual public hearing is being provided to share information and to encourage comments from the public regarding the proposed I-35 Capital Express North project. Notices for this hearing were published on the TxDOT website, my35capex.com, and appeared in the Austin American-Statesman on April 21st and 26th and May 3rd. El Mundo on April 22nd, and Community Impact on April 24th of 2021. The notice was also mailed to adjacent property owners, stakeholders, and elected public officials. TxDOT also provided social media posts regarding this hearing and distributed media releases to local media outlets. The purpose of this public hearing is to inform the public of project status and project recommendations, describe the project so the public can determine how they may be affected, provide the public the opportunity to provide input, and develop a record of public participation. TxDOT is committed to continuing our efforts to gain public feedback about this project. We understand this virtual public hearing format is a bit different, so let's take a few minutes and explain the comment process. Because of COVID-19, the Austin District is asking the public to provide their input through verbal and/or written comments. TxDOT is offering several methods for providing comments. You can submit written comments by email, mailing your comments to the address on your screen, or by submitting comments online at the My35 Capital Express website, as displayed on this slide. All written comments must be received or postmarked by June 10, 2021 to be included in the official public hearing record. In addition to written comments, verbal comments will be accepted. Verbal testimony will be similar to an in-person public hearing. A voicemail system will allow you to record a comment up to 3 minutes long, similar to the time provided during our standard in-person public hearing practice. The verbal testimony option is available from 9 a.m. May 10, 2021 until 11:59 p.m. on Thursday, June 10, 2021. Please call 512-721-2832 and leave a voicemail with your comment during that time. The responses to all comments submitted during the comment period will be included in the virtual public hearing summary report, which will be posted to my35capex.com once completed. This virtual public hearing and additional project information, such as project plans and environmental documentation, are posted for viewing and download at my35capex.com. The information presented on this website is the same information being presented in this video. Now let's start talking about the project details. The I-35 Capital Express North project spans 11.5 miles of I-35 from SH-45 North to US 290 East. The purpose of the proposed project is to increase mobility and safety on I-35 for the traveling public. The I-35 Capital Express North project is needed because the capacity of I-35 between SH-45 North and US 290 East is inadequate to meet current and future traffic volumes, resulting in congestion, reduced mobility, and reduced safety. The project proposes to add one non-tolled high-occupancy vehicle managed lane in each direction within the project limits. The project proposes to improve bicycle and pedestrian accommodations along I-35 frontage roads by adding 15.2 miles of new shared use paths, in addition to 4.5 miles of shared use paths that now exist or are under construction. The project would also reconstruct bridges and would address safety and mobility throughout the corridor by adding 5.2 miles of intersection bypass lanes for safer and faster access to and from the main lanes and to benefit local and regional mobility, eliminating 5 direct main lane merges, and improving east-west connections over or under I-35. The project plans can be found on the virtual public hearing website. The existing I-35 corridor within the project limits is typically a 6-lane barrier-divided highway consisting of 3 12-foot wide main lanes with 2-foot wide inside shoulders, 4-foot wide outside shoulders, and 2 11-foot wide frontage road lanes in each direction. The existing right-of-way is typically 300 feet wide. Sidewalks exist intermittently throughout the project area between frontage roads and adjacent businesses and around intersections. The project would add one 12-foot wide managed high-occupancy vehicle lane and an additional 11-foot wide frontage road lane in each direction. Main lane widths in the corridor would be reduced to 11 feet in some sections, and outside shoulder widths along the main lanes would be increased to 10 feet. Bicycle and pedestrian accommodations would be provided by a 10-foot wide shared use path along both sides of the road. In constrained areas, an 8-foot wide shared use path would be constructed. The project would also construct a diverging diamond intersection at Wells Branch Parkway. This slide shows an artistic rendering of what the proposed roadway would typically look like. This is a view of I-35 to the north at Yeager Lane and Tech Ridge Boulevard. The proposed managed lanes are depicted by the blue lanes, and the proposed shared use path is shaded in green. Also shown is the proposed northbound elevated intersection bypass lane over Tech Ridge Boulevard. This slide shows an artistic rendering of the proposed diverging diamond intersection, or DDI, at Wells Branch Parkway. This is similar to the existing DDI located at the intersection of Slaughter Lane and Mopac. A DDI is also currently being constructed at the intersection of I-35 and Palmer Lane. Diverging diamond intersections are proposed for intersections with a high volume of left-turning traffic. DDIs allow vehicles to travel more efficiently through an intersection by temporarily shifting traffic to the left side of the road. This allows through traffic and left-turning traffic to proceed through the intersection simultaneously, eliminating the need for a left turn arrow. The graphic on your screen explains how a DDI works. Traffic signals are installed at crossover points. After a driver has crossed over, they can either freely turn left, rather than waiting for oncoming traffic to clear or for a left turn signal, or continue straight and shift back to the right side of the roadway once clearing the intersection. Frontage road through traffic can bypass the intersection via a dedicated intersection bypass lane, allowing drivers to avoid the traffic signal. To help drivers navigate, DDIs are designed with overhead signs, pavement markings, and traffic signals. There are several benefits of a diverging diamond intersection. A DDI enhances safety by reducing potential crash points at intersections, increases mobility by allowing more cars to move through an intersection, accommodates more vehicles turning left without adding more lanes, and allows for better sight distance at turns. To learn more about a DDI and view an informational video, please return to the virtual public hearing website. Utility adjustments and relocations will be required throughout the corridor. The adjustments and relocation of any utilities would be managed so that no substantial interruptions occur in utility services. The technical documentation for this project addressed the potential environmental impacts identified during the design phase of the proposed project. These areas of potential impacts included natural, social, and cultural resources, as well as potential impacts to adjacent and surrounding land use. The environmental reports were approved by TxDOT and have been coordinated with other public agencies. The draft environmental assessment and associated technical reports can be found on the virtual public hearing website. This slide shows a list of all topics that were considered during the environmental phase of this project. The following slides include a summary of the more notable findings. The proposed project would require the use of a minor amount of property within the Upper Little Walnut Creek Greenbelt, which is a resource covered by Section 4F of the U.S. Department of Transportation Act and Chapter 26 of the Texas Parks and Wildlife Code. Section 4F protects publicly owned and accessible parks, recreation areas, wildlife and waterfowl refuges, and historic sites. Chapter 26 includes provisions similar to the federal Section 4F regulation, including requiring a finding that there is no feasible and prudent alternative to the use or taking of the protected land, that the project includes all reasonable planning to minimize harm, and that a public hearing be held prior to the approval of the use of land from the publicly owned park properties. The project would require the acquisition of approximately 0.6 acres from the park. This includes 0.5 acres from the existing parkland parcel on the west side of I-35 and 0.1 acre from a potential parkland parcel on the east side of I-35. These improvements, which are needed in order to improve roadway operations, would not result in impacts to any recreational facilities in the park. It is not anticipated that impacts to the Upper Little Walnut Creek Greenbelt would adversely affect the activities, features, or attributes that make the park eligible for Section 4F protection. Therefore, TxDOT is currently coordinating with the City of Austin Parks and Recreation Department to determine if project activities meet the requirements of a de minimis finding under Section 4F. A traffic noise analysis was conducted in accordance with TxDOT's guidelines for analysis and abatement of roadway traffic noise and is available for review on the virtual public hearing website. The proposed project would result in traffic noise impacts to 51 out of 90 representative receivers. Noise barriers are the most commonly used noise abatement measure and were evaluated for each of the impacted receiver locations. According to the traffic noise model, noise barriers would be feasible and reasonable at 7 locations. Therefore, noise barriers are proposed for incorporation into the project. Feasible in this context means that the noise barriers provide a minimum reduction in noise levels and are able to be constructed given the currently known site constraints. Reasonable means that the noise barrier was able to achieve a substantial noise reduction and is cost reasonable. The final decision to construct proposed noise barriers will not be made until completion of the project design, utility evaluation, and polling of adjacent property owners. A noise workshop will be held prior to construction to solicit viewpoints of the property owners and tenants associated with the proposed noise abatement. A brochure describing this process, called Building Barriers to Traffic Noise Brochure, is available on the virtual public hearing website. These maps illustrate the noise barriers that are proposed for incorporation into the project at Lantower Ambrosio Apartment Complex, the Vineyard Apartment Complex, North Oaks Neighborhood, 4 representative receivers, Cricket Hollow Apartment Complex, Starburst and Orbit Apartment Complexes, 2 representative receivers, Woodland Heights Apartment Complex, Town Oaks 1 Apartment Complex. 9 potential waters of the U.S. and 1 wetland were identified within the project area. They include Gilliland Creek, Walnut Creek, Little Walnut Creek, and 6 unnamed tributaries to these creeks. Impacts to waters of the U.S. would be authorized through a U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Nationwide Permit 14 without a pre-construction notification or compensatory mitigation required. During construction, impacts to each of these potential waters of the U.S. and wetland would be minimized to the extent practical. Based on the findings of the draft EA and technical reports, implementation of the proposed project would not result in a significant impact on the human or natural environment under NEPA. Therefore, a finding of no significant impact is recommended. Now let's talk about the right-of-way acquisition process. The proposed project would require the acquisition of approximately 17 acres of additional right-of-way. The proposed project would displace 5 commercial properties. No residential properties would be displaced. Once environmental clearance has been obtained and the project has been fully authorized, TxDOT would commence the acquisition process. All right-of-way acquisition would be done in accordance with the Uniform Relocation Assistance and Real Property Acquisition Policies Act of 1970, commonly referred to as the Uniform Act. Brochures, including 3 booklets titled The Purchase of Right-of-Way, Relocation Assistance, and the Landowner's Bill of Rights, are also available for you on the virtual public hearing website. These documents contain detailed information on the process and requirements for appraisal and negotiations, as well as detailed information to inform you of your rights as a property owner. In all cases, the property owner would be reimbursed for any reasonable, incidental expenses necessarily incurred in transferring title to the acquired property to the state. If you have questions about right-of-way acquisition, please call 512-766-3472. Following this hearing, documentation of this public hearing will be reviewed by TxDOT for the final environmental decision and design approval. If there are no major issues arising from this hearing that cannot be addressed in a reasonable time frame, the final environmental decision is expected in the summer of 2021. Following the environmental decision, right-of-way acquisition will begin. Construction of this project is expected to begin in 2022 and be complete in 2027. The total estimated cost of the proposed project is approximately $400 million. Now let's recap how you can provide input about this project. You can submit written comments by email, mailing your comments to the address on your screen, or by submitting comments online at the I-35 Capital Express North Project website as displayed on this slide. You can also provide your verbal testimony. The verbal testimony option is available starting at 9 a.m. on May 10, 2021, and will be available until 11:59 p.m. on Thursday, June 10, 2021. Please call 512-721-2832 and leave a voicemail with your comment during that time. Your comments will be recorded, and a response will be included in the virtual public hearing summary report. The voicemail system allows you to record a comment up to 3 minutes long, similar to the time provided during our standard in-person public hearing practice. Most importantly, be sure to submit your written and verbal testimony comments no later than June 10, 2021. As noted earlier, the responses to your comments submitted during the comment period will be included in the public hearing summary report. This report will be posted to my35capex.com once completed. Again, we appreciate your understanding with this comment process. Thank you for your participation. This concludes the presentation, and this virtual public hearing is adjourned.